Hello and welcome back to the True North CFL podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Leach. You can follow me on Twitter at Jimmy Leach CFL.
And I'm James Tees. You can follow me on Instagram at James_Tees, and it's spelled Tees.
All right, so for this episode, we're just going to be going over our draft grades, which we posted on Instagram, and kind of as we're doing that, give you our overall thoughts on the draft. So we've got the grades open that we posted on Instagram. So let's start with the first team here, which was our consensus lowest grade team, the Ottawa Redblacks. Congratulations. And their GM is so bad.
I agree. I think a lot of the Ontario, well, just Toronto and Ottawa, I just feel like they just have bad management. Like for drafting, not for signing guys, but for drafting, I think they're pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I know I still think it's ridiculous that they fired Hugh Campbell, or not Hugh Campbell, his son, whose name escapes me. But their head coach was really good, and then it just came down to, he said he goes or I go, and Desjardins was closer with management, so they gave Campbell the boot, and now he's in BC. But let's get into their draft here. Their first pick at number 6 overall was linebacker slash defensive end Deshaun Stevens. Now, this I thought was a good pick. We both gave it an A. Where do you think he fits on Ottawa, James?
I'd say defensive line. I looked at his tape. Ooh, boy is stiff. His hips cannot move. He's got no change in direction. If he played Sam or Will, he would get absolutely eaten up. He could maybe play Mac, but I realistically see him as an edge player in the CFL just based on his tape, how stiff and slow he is.
Okay, that's fair. I know a lot of people early on were projecting him just because of his size. He was probably going to be a defensive end. I think he did a lot of pass rushing in college, so I mean that definitely makes sense.
He did. He has very good, uh, not very good lateral speed, but if he's running on a straight line or like an edge, he'd be pretty fast. It's just his lateral speed is lacking.
All right, that's good. And then let's move on to their second round pick. We have conflicting opinions on this one. In the second round, 13th overall, they selected Alonzo Adai, who is a safety slash DB out of Virginia. I gave this pick an A. You gave it a C. So, what? Why did you give it a C?
Because the Red Blacks need help now. They don't need help in 5 years from now when this guy maybe doesn't make it in the NFL, when I think he does make it in the NFL.
That's definitely fair. For me, it's like, what is Ottawa's biggest need? I think they need impact Canadians.
Mhm.
And if for some reason can't follow his Europe that he had this past season, sort of like with what happened with Terrell Jano, who we'll get to later. So if he takes a dip in production, you might be able to get him in a year or two. And if he makes it here, he's definitely going to be an impact player. So it's like, I like the pick, but I totally get your reasoning too. I could definitely see him sticking in the NFL if he has another good season at Virginia.
Yeah, people are commenting on his height. Kenny Moore, who's a nickelback in the NFL, is only 5'8", and he mossed on the tight end from the Raiders, Darren Waller. And I'm saying sometimes height is overrated because tape doesn't lie.
Sure. And then let's get into their next pick. I believe this is the third round, or yeah, this is the third round pick. They selected Connor Bergloff, O lineman out of the U of S. Now we both gave this pick an A, so why don't you hype up Bergloff a little bit on what you know?
You know, out west, just an offensive line. I think truly believe like teams in Saskatchewan and Alberta kind of produce the best O linemen. That they have like a nice pro turnover as well as they're good. He's a big, thick Sask boy. That's what coaches love to see. He's going to be a mauler on the inside. He might not start right away, but he's a developmental guy, like a lot of guys in the third round, and he just has a high ceiling just based on his physique.
Yeah, for sure. He's had all Canadian honors as well, and then he also has played some center, so that definitely helps his value. In the CFL, he's projected as a guard or center, and I know Ottawa. They've been looking for a solution at center since John Gott left, so maybe Bergloff can develop into that in the future. And then, so you may be wondering, why are their grades so low in the overall draft? I gave them a C plus. James, you gave them a C minus. When your picks have been pretty good so far. Well, uh, I don't know if they fell asleep or maybe they got drunk waiting for their next pick, but ooh, in the fourth round, they picked a kicker slash punter. Keep in mind, this is the team that has Lewis Ward and Richie Leone under contract.
Those
It-
guys are going to be camp bodies, one of them.
yeah. Which one? Or who do you think?
you know, it's tough to say, but I think Jake Julian, the kicker punter they got in from
Yeah.
Western Michigan, is kind of going to
Eastern
be the
Michigan,
guy.
yeah.
Eastern, my bad. He's going to actually be one of these guys that forces guys to compete. He may not be the starting kicker right away, but he's going to force these guys to compete to show who's the better guy. Because you don't bring in a third kicker for no reason, especially a guy who can do both. And fun fact, he was actually committed to York University, but then decommitted once he got a NCAA offer.
Oh yeah, that's your school. And we'll get to one of your alumni later on, but yeah, again, this picnic makes absolutely no sense. You have arguably the best kicker in the CFL and are the best punter in the CFL, in my opinion. So drafting a kicker at 4, and he wasn't even the best kicker on the board. The Laval guy was still there when they made this pick, who I believe he does both, and he was the consensus number 1 kicker. So even if you're gonna pick a kicker, this was not the move, you know?
I agree. Because didn't their kicker set like a record for football in general? Not like,
Yes,
yeah,
most consecutive makes in a regular season, so he's arguably the best kicker in the CFL.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's silly that they do this.
and then Richie Leone has a monster leg. He's probably again now that Rob Maver is out of the league, he's probably the best punter in the CFL.
I miss Maber, but yeah,
And then if you thought that was a bad pick, wait till they're picking round 5 when they decided to draft Keegan Markgraf, a long snapper. Yes, you heard that right. A long snapper out of the University of Utah, who, by the way, isn't even coming to the CFL this year. He's coming next year.
what an absolute waste of a pick. And you know what? He's probably not even going to come to the CFL. He's probably going to go on a mission because he's Mormon or something. Like, who wastes like a pick on a long snapper in like at 42 when there was still quality guys available that would actually have a huge impact compared to a long snapper? Don't get me wrong, the position is important, but why would you waste a pick on a long snapper in that round? Like when you could have gotten a guy undrafted, he's pretty good.
Yeah. Like, if this was the 8th round or whatever, and you're really hyped on this guy, I could give this pick a pass. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on long snappers either. My cousin was a long snapper in the CFL for a really long time. So, yeah, I'm definitely not hating on the position. I'm just hating on that you picked him in the 5th round, where there's still really quality players here. And no, let's be real. How many teams are like looking at this guy and picking a long snapper? It's not like he, is a linebacker who can also long snap or something like that. Like, this guy's a pure long snapper, and again, he's not even coming to the CFL this year. He's still gonna got another year at Utah. So again, just makes no sense to me. And then let's go on to their final pick. They drafted offensive lineman Mathen Dirks. I gave this pick a B because O line's a bit of a position of need for them, so Decent pickup, I think. Dude played NCAA, so can't be too bad. And then I gave his pick a B, and you gave it a C. So what do you know about Matthew Dirks?
So I think he sucks and he's an unathletic player. He benched 225 13 times. Uh, That's not impressive for no lineman. There's rookie linebackers that come in and bench. Okay, well, 225 is heavy for a lot of guys, but for a guy who played NCAA offensive line, you'd think he was better. This guy was on one of our posts where I said he's gonna fall because his combine sucked, and I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah, man, you're ahead of the ball on this. That's what I like. You're always ahead of the ball on these picks. So
One that was unreleased that I said was two guys that were big risers ended up being picked. One was in the first round, and we'll get to that later.
all right, so let's move on to our next team. Calgary Stampeders. Their draft, I gave them a B minus, and then you gave them a B overall, and I think there's a decent reason for that. I feel like just with it's a philosophy difference here. With their
Yeah,
first round pick, eighth overall, they took Amen Onbogbemiga of Oklahoma State. We both gave this pick a C. So why did you give it a C?
I just want to say this. Shout out Alex's brother. He trains football players in Calgary and has gotten guys NCAA offers from Calgary as well as helped them get into college because he's a highly regarded trainer in Calgary. He did a lot for me in my time before I went to university. So I appreciate his brother Alex. But Eamon, man, why would you pick a guy who's going to stick around in the NFL for a little bit? Like that's a waste of a first round pick. I get that there's this allure around him because he went undrafted, but I still think he has a better chance to make a roster than Ulrich Jackson, as he's showed out in every game he's played in. And I just feel like in the Big 12, a lot of defenders are disrespected. So that's because it's not everyone thinks defense sucks in the Big 12, but you know, that's why I gave it a C because I think he's too good for the CFL at this moment.
Same here. I think he sticks around the NFL for a while, so I don't really see this panning out, at least in the short term. So again, if this was a later pick, it probably would have been higher, but with your first round pick, yeah, no, I give it a C. So with their first pick in the second round, 11th overall, they took offensive lineman Bryce Bell out of Wilford Laurier. I gave this one an A, and then you gave it a B plus. So what do you think of Bryce Bell?
Well, to be fair, he is a good player, but I just felt like there was a lot better offensive linemen that were on the board that were bigger, taller, stronger, that were more versatile. But yeah, they're like, "Oh, this guy's going to play tackle," and I'm like, in the CFL to play tackle at 6'3" is incredibly hard. Though this, I want to say we, the Stamps. I'm trying to come at this as a is not a fan as take an unbiased approach, but I just feel like you could have gotten a guy like Logan Bandy sitting here, but instead you took Bryce Bell from Laurier, who's going to probably play on the interior, who's not 300 pounds. That's concerning. I Very few guys can play below 300. They're kind of sticklers, I suppose, for the rule, but he could be really good. That's why I give him a B plus. Good pick. Just felt like there's better guys available.
That's definitely fair. This guy was a bit of a late riser in the draft, from what I heard. And Wilford Laurier, they've produced a lot of excellent pros lately. You look at Kwaku Boateng and Robbie Smith and different guys like that. I feel like that is a good school right now, and why not take a quality offensive lineman from there? I definitely agree with you that there are better guys on the board, and we will get to that later. But
I just want to say one thing about Laurier.
go for it.
They may not have the highest turnover in guys, but the guys that they have been producing recently have been extremely high quality. They may not have like the largest amount, but they've all been really quality. The guys that have come out of there as of recent,
Yeah, for
they've got
sure.
really good coaching. That's what I'll say. Really good coaching.
Yeah, that's why I gave this pick an A, is because I like that he came from an excellent school. It's a position of need. Good pick. And then let's go into the third round. Uh, oh yeah, this is their first one. Okay, yeah, third round, 26th overall. They take linebacker Charlie Moore out of the University of Calgary. So I'll let you talk a little bit about him.
So in the Vanier Cup, he actually knocked himself unconscious hitting a guy, which is funny. There's a thing on his Instagram, him posting about it. It's pretty funny. But, you know, he's probably all of the Dinos linebackers had really good years. And I thought Charlie Moore, yeah, he's good. But the Stamps, I know they have an idea of getting a guy who's from UC, kind of building him up. That's what they like to do, kind of get hometown guys, even though he's from BC. But my thing here is with Charlie is that, you know, the Stamps have a habit of finding linebackers out of nowhere and turning them into studs, and I do think this was a good pick. I don't think Charlie was a reach. He's one of these guys. He had a good combine. He did better than expected, and he was pretty fast. He ran like a 4.640, which is pretty impressive, and I think that's a good pick, and it's what the Stamps needed. Right now, their biggest needs were linebacker and receiver, realistically.
Yeah, that's fair for sure. I like the pick. Yeah, Calgary in general produces a lot of really good pros. I think they have the most players
They have the
in the
highest turnover
CFL.
out of any team. They have the highest turnover. Then it's Laval. You know what's funny? One of the lowest teams is actually Western, and they've been consistently good.
Yeah, like for sure, schools like that, like we just talked about Laurier, they might not produce a lot of guys, but the guys that come out are very good. So even like Chris Merchant is ripping it up Europe right now as a quarterback. So like yeah, they produce good pros at Western for sure. And then let's go to their next pick, another linebacker, this time out of UBC, Elliot Graham. That's yeah, they UBC had a really good year. All three of their linebackers went off the board.
Fairly early. Ben Hladek is unreal too. I thought he had the best. He probably out of any single player had the best pro day. But the only reason I'm trying to remember the other guy's name who went off the board ahead of him. The
Would have
reason
been Nick
he did
Cross.
yeah, because Nick Cross has all the accolades, even though he was Ben Hladek was also the U Sports Defensive Player of the Year before. But the thing was, Elliot Graham. There was one post we didn't get to where it was the risers, and I put Elliot Graham as a sleeper. He's the not the biggest name of the three, but he's still an absolute shooter. Like his combine was ridiculous. He benched 225 like just under 20 times, and he had a pretty fast 40. And I thought this was actually a steal. You know, I felt this guy was underappreciated, but he shows on tape and on his combine that, you know, these other guys may have the big name, but he's still worthy of that pick just based on his athleticism, you know, and tape doesn't lie. I always say that tape doesn't lie. You know, stats will say this and that and accolades, but tape does not lie.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's go into round five here. Calgary had two picks in this round because they actually traded up with Toronto to make this pick. At 43, they took Chuba Hubbard, uh, running back out of Oak State, who was drafted by the Panthers. So we both gave this pick a C. So why did you give it a C?
Because there's a small possibility in like 12 years he wants to play in the CFL. Um, I'm not going to give them an F. They drafted a guy just in case. But out of all the Canadians besides Javon Holland, he has the best chance to stick around in the CFL. I don't care. People are like, oh, he's on the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey. Okay, most the good teams have 2 to 3 running backs that can do everything that are unreal. Look at like teams that won the Super Bowl like last year. The Tampa Bay, they had 2 running backs, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, that were both really good. You can't just have one good running back on your squad unless you're the Titans because Derrick Henry's a freak. But what I mean is he's going to get playing time immediately.
Yeah, like I didn't love the landing spot when I first heard about it, but I mean, backing up CMC definitely isn't the worst thing in the world, and learning from him would definitely be a wonderful experience for him.
And he
So,
needs load management. A guy that size is going to get hurt. He had finally got hurt and caught up with him.
yeah, and as running backs get older, injuries start to creep in more and more. So, uh, I, when I think about it more, I like that pick a little more for the Panthers. But for Calgary, yeah, I don't think he comes here unless he just like he loves the game and wants to come play a year when he's done, type of thing. But so that's why we both gave that pick a C. I didn't give it an F because he's a local guy. So I mean, if he does come here, that's a great story. So
Yeah, he got an Air Canada sponsorship. Not even Chase Claypool has an Air Canada sponsorship.
yeah, that's pretty sick
Like no one, like no Canadians have it, and this guy has it. That's crazy.
for
I think that's
sure.
good for the game. I don't know. I just think that was cool.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna let you announce round five, number 44. I gave this pick an A minus. You gave it an A. Why don't you tell us all about this pick, James?
Luther Hakuna Navahu Vanahu. Sorry guys, I butchered that because it's a long last name. He's a teammate of mine. Guy is huge. He's a 6'4" receiver, like 210, like a 7-foot wingspan, and he's pretty strong for a receiver. He could lift like he lifts like a linebacker, like a lineman almost. Like he's such a strong cat. Though he didn't do 225 a lot. His like squat is pretty good. His deadlifts. He's a super strong guy. I like seeing him every day. Massive hands. He's the big body possession receiver you need. You know, this is a guy who didn't have crazy accolades. When I played with him, we had the bottom offense in all of Canada, and he was our leading receiver. And he had some crazy games against Guelph. He had like 250 yards, two receiving TDs. Man,
Jeez.
guy's gonna be a stud, and he ran like in the like a 4.640,
Yeah.
which is he actually ran faster, but they clocked him longer because the CFL wasn't going off of laser times. They were actually putting the video into a program and having the program determine the 40 time.
Well, that's weird. But yeah, what I know about this guy, great measurables. And yeah, late pick, but I don't know. You've been gassing me up on this guy for a while, so I like this pick. So I gave it an A minus. And Calgary, they like their Canadian receivers, man. So
Oh,
you
good
know,
good kid, local kid too from Edmonton.
oh, okay, that I did not know, but that makes it even better. There you go.
Yeah, and our old receiver coach who used to play for Calgary, Kamau Peterson, is boys with McDaniel, who's our receiver coach, and tagged him in a post the day of the draft of Luther.
Oh,
I
that's
think
sick.
that, I think that's the, and also they have another York receiver, Colton Hunchak.
Oh yeah, I remember him. He had a good first year too.
He was
So
he was Mr. Relevant, and he came in and played really good.
yeah, those eighth round picks. There's been a couple that have been actually okay. Look at Joshua Sanford, Sean Thomas Erlington, and
Boat was like
you
a
know,
7th round pick.
yeah, like those late round picks in the CFL draft, they can still become something,
I'd
So
say with undrafted, I say this, even guys there's no difference between getting drafted in the second round and going undrafted. Not actually, but I say this because the CFL everything's on potential. There, it's easier to determine if a guy's going to be good in the NFL than compared to the CFL because it's so different. Where you got guys from NCAA, U Sports, different backgrounds, different coaching. It's so
yep,
there's less parity than there is in the NFL.
definitely fair for sure. Well, let's move on to our next team, the Argos, who their overall draft, I gave them a B plus. You gave them a C plus here, so let's get into that. With their first pick, seventh overall, they picked offensive lineman out of Calgary, Peter Nicastro. I gave this pick a B. You gave it a C plus. So why don't you talk about this pick?
I actually have trained with Peter before. Yeah, I don't think he's ever gonna hear this, but, he's a good guy. He's a real strong guy, and, like, no hate on him. Great player, He is a little on the shorter side. He's only 6'1". That's very small for an offensive lineman, but I just felt like he wasn't a first-round player. I felt like maybe he was, like, a 3rd, 4th, 5th round guy, not worth it was a reach. That's why it was a C plus. Good player, but just an absolute reach. They did that last year with Darren Churchill.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if he's the top guy on the board, but I mean, he's still a quality player. So that's why I didn't give this pick an A. It's like it's a good pick, but it could have been better type of thing.
Yeah, agreed. Like, their next pick, Sage Dockstader, would have been a better pick than Peter in the 1st round.
Yep. They took him in the second round, 12th overall. So let's talk a little about Sage because I like this pick. I gave it an A. You gave it an A plus. So why don't you hype this guy up?
I actually think he might go to the NFL. I start to watch his tape a little bit. He had a game where he played against Ohio State, and his tape was good, and he's good. He's 6'7", 350. Now that's a man that can move, and especially if he's locking down Ohio State. Obviously, they got beat horribly, but that's Ohio State against like a low level New Mexico team. But the thing is that he's clamping guys on Ohio State says something about him. And before I would have been like, oh, this pick's, it's not that good. But after watching tape, where I really looked at his game and looked against the big teams where he showed up, I was like, man, I don't think this guy might not make it to the CFL, but if he does, he's going to be something big. Like he's way better. People would compare him to like Kyle Saxelid, a guy on Edmonton who's really big. But the difference is with this guy, he's really really big and he can move. He's 350, 6'7", and can move. And his tape looks a lot better than Kyle Saxelid's did.
Yeah, a lot of what you said there reminds me of an NFL draft pick. I'm not saying they're nearly the same level, but I mean similar style. I guess is Darisaw, who I can't remember where he went in the draft. Late first, I think, but he was a guy. They said similar stuff about him in terms of his quickness. It's like a guy that big should not be able to move like that. And I
Oh, he's
hear,
bigger than Darisaw, but yeah.
yeah, I hear a lot of the same kind of things about Sage. So I like that pick. In Toronto, man, if this pick pans out, they could potentially have a all starting Canadian O line, man. Like they already have another starting tackle. So if Sage comes up, they could potentially have that other tackle in the guard
Jamal
spots.
Campbell. Jamal Campbell played at York as well.
Yeah, he's really good. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of
he's
his.
good. He came out of nowhere, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's get to this next pick. You've been dumping on this guy since like the first top 20 rankings came out, which is why I giggled a little bit when I saw this pick was coming. So, third round, 25th overall, Toronto took Luigi Villain, defensive lineman out of Michigan. So, what do you have to say about this?
Man, he didn't even dress every game at Michigan, and I hate this. Like St. Juice was the same class as him. But St. Juice, you know what he did? He's like, oh, I'm playing. Did play a lot at Michigan compared to Luigi. The thing was, he's like, I'm not really in with the coaches. I'm gonna go to Michigan, ball out, and be the player who I am, and get drafted in the 3rd round.
Or you mean Minnesota?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, he went from Michigan to Minnesota. What team did I say?
You said he went from Michigan to Michigan.
Oh, I meant to say Minnesota. My bad, y'all.
Yeah, all good.
I just want to say, Luigi, man, he and other guys did this on this list. These Canadian guys who go to these big time Power Five teams and never play, but then transfer. Like Joseph. Joseph did the right thing.
Yeah,
He could have been something if he did not stay at Michigan. And you know what? I think that hurt his development. And I think a lot of U Sports guys could clamp him. Okay. People don't like don't think U Sports is high level. It is. I compare it to Division 1 AA.
that's fair. For this guy, I dug into his history a little bit. Honestly, came out of school as a 4-star recruit and had a lot of injury trouble in his earlier career and has really only been a rotational guy at Michigan. And You drew parallels to Daniel Joseph. I see that as well here because again, this is a guy who was he's just a rotational guy at a big school, you know, and I believe he's transferring next year to Wake Forest, so we
Oh,
could
Luke.
potentially see a Daniel Joseph 2.0 here.
Yeah, very could very well be that way, especially because they just lost a starting edge player.
Yeah, so this he just comes in right away and potentially fills that spot, and if he has a good year, you know, I don't know if he's going to get the NFL interest because of his injury history, and you know, even if he has one good year, you know, they might be scared of his non-production at Michigan. So this could be a guy that comes to the CFL next year and potentially is a quality contributor for the Argos. So overall, I gave it a B. And then let's go with their next pick. Fourth round, 30th overall. They took McMaster wide receiver Tommy Neild. So what do you know about this guy, James?
You know, McMaster runs a very pro style CFL offense, and he thrived in there. He was their best receiver, and you know, they their style parallels pros very similar, and he kind of looks like that pro guy. You know, he's not crazy big, he's not small, but he was one of the top receivers in the OUA, and the OUA is a super competitive division. And I feel like he could come in and just be a rotational guy, a teamer for a little bit till he develops into something. But I'd say he was probably, if we're taking stats and accolades, probably the best U Sports receiver in this draft. Not based on combine and body type, but if we're going off of accolades and stats. That's why I think that was a good pick. Just because, you know, he has everything to back it up, even though he may not pass the CFL eye test.
That's fair. I know we had good production, and I thought this was a good value pick with the players on the board, especially with I know you talked about Will Corby not getting drafted. Talk about for and you were hit the nail on the head with that one. Uh, so yeah, he was the only guy I could really see, and I mean Toronto, they're trying to start like realistically, they're probably going to start like three Canadian receivers because you got who do you got there? You got Jawan Breskinson.
Eric Rogers, he's an American though.
Oh yeah. You got Levi Noel, and then they have another Canadian, Dejon Brissett, who they drafted second overall last year. You know, and now you have Neiled, and they had some other guys already there that are in the mix. So
Curly Gittens Jr. is going to be good. I'm telling you. I know I did an interview with him where I stuttered. You know, I was just really distracted during it. It was my issue, my fault. You want to know what? I swear to God, this guy's going to be good. People don't know this. Curly Gittens Jr. is one of the best U Sports receivers to ever play. He will be eventually good on Toronto or somewhere else.
yeah, he's a guy that I'm high on too, especially because he can buy himself a bit more time because he's a returner too, right? So yeah, again, they could potentially start three Canadian receivers there. So yeah, that's another reason to love this pick. And this is a guy I knew absolutely nothing about, so my grade for it was NA or non applicable. 33 overall in the fourth round. They drafted linebacker Trevor Heriote out of Carleton.
Yeah, he ain't no Jack Casser. I'll say that.
Oh yeah,
You know, yeah, Jack Castor was that shooter on that defense, and I felt like that was kind of a reach. I felt like this guy, if this were a regular draft, would be like an eighth round guy or like undrafted. So I felt like it was kind of a reach, and I just felt like he was more of like a scheme guy in Carlton's defense because Jack Castor was that guy in that squad.
it's fair for sure. Um, let's jump to the last round here. 47th overall. They had a pick I really liked here. They took Joshua Haggerty and U of S Husky. 47th overall. I gave this pick a B plus. You gave it a B. So why don't we talk a little bit about Haggerty?
Man, I'm about to get in shit, but like, come on, man. Have you looked at this guy before?
A little bit.
Yeah, he looks he looks like Caleb Presley from Barstool. This guy does not look like a corner. He looks like he should be.
I mean,
Uh,
fair enough.
he doesn't pass the eye test. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's fair, but we also said that about Tommy Neild, so I mean, we got to be fair. I mean,
He's a white DV. I don't trust him.
fair enough. His tape's nice. Saskatchewan kid, so you know he's tough. Um, with him, he's definitely like an energy guy. Like plays a lot of energy. Um,
Yeah.
so he's probably a safety at the CFL level, but with a 6th round pick, a quality safety definitely isn't the worst thing you can get there.
Oh, for sure. That's why I put a B, man. I said, I just have my reserves. It's just about the eye test. I know I said that about other guys. This guy does not pass the eye test for a guy who's playing in the secondary.
That's fair for sure. And then let's go with their last pick, 52nd overall. They took Benjamin St. Just out of Minnesota, who was drafted in the NFL by the Washington football team. I believe it was in the 3rd round. We both gave this pick a C. I think it's for the same reason. Let's hear yours.
He's an NFL guy for sure. He just had injury concern in the NCAA, but besides that, when he was on the field, he was electric. Like when they played Penn State and beat them last year, he was lights out.
Yeah, I know he was good on the field, and he had a really nice Senior Bowl. Same with Josh Palmer. So it really goes to show how that can help a guy's draft stock. So,
That's what got Palmer drafted.
oh, 100%. Yeah, I was actually surprised. Like, he was a guy that honestly I would have thought a team would have taken a flyer on. I don't think anybody did, but
I thought he would have gone undrafted if he did not have that Senior Bowl.
oh, for sure, yeah. Because one of the things I was reading his NFL scouting report, they all talked about how he didn't produce a ton, but that's because his quarterback play at Tennessee
Oh,
was brutal.
see, one of the worst quarterbacking I've seen in years.
Yeah, and then when he gets to the Pro Bowl, he's like breaking ankles of like high end defensive backs. So I
Yeah, against
mean,
top guys who played at like Bama and at like Auburn, guys who are starters are like top guys in whatever division, and he's like bossing them. He had one of the best Senior Bowls I've seen in a long time.
yeah, like I think in the one on ones he broke one out. I don't know if it was Patrick Surtain or not, but he broke somebody's ankles from Bama. Like it was either on a fade or a post route, and it was just like wow, like dude's got skill, man. So
Yeah, he's a
yeah,
technical.
oh, for sure. But yeah, I'm glad he got drafted. But I mean, at the same time, that would have been nice to see in the CFL, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on to our next team here, the Montreal Alouettes, who we both gave Bs to. And because they did not have a pick in the 1st round due to the Johnny Manziel trade that feels like it was like 10 years ago now, um, they had this first pick in the 2nd round, 10th overall. They took oh yeah, Pierre Oliver Lestage out of U of M. I gave this pick a B minus. You gave it an A, and I think. What do you think of him?
I think he's really good. That's why the Seahawks signed him to a contract. But I don't think he sticks in the NFL. He's 6'2", under 300 pounds. Like he's like a CFL body. If he gained some weight, he might be able to stick around. But when me and my buddies were watching the draft, I said, "Come on, play that Vanier Cup tape. Play the Vanier Cup tape. I want to see him get bullied by Jamin Pelly." But they unfortunately did not show it. But I still think he's a really good player. And I thought that was an A. Build these hometown guys and just build them up. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember Sajepi played it. My friend played Sajep with him, which is
Oh,
like
okay.
JUCO equivalent there. I think he played at Lennoxville. But yeah, basically, I thought, impact guy, compete guy. He's going to come in day one and compete for a starting gig. And he's from Montreal, quality guy that could have easily gone in the 1st round. He might stick around in the NFL for a year, but that'll be good for his development.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, like I think he sticks in the NFL for a year or two just because of the team he went to. Like I always thought about this. Like, do you go to the team that's going to give you the biggest bag, or do you go to the team you're going to stick around probably with the longest, right? If you're like an undrafted guy. and he went the route of need. Like Seattle, they only took one offensive lineman in the draft, and they had one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. So to me, you know he has a very good chance of sticking around. And the guy they took in the draft, I believe it was a tackle. It wasn't even a guard. Like Lestage is a center slash guard. So again, it just
They need
increases the
that.
chances of sticking. So I like it.
They only have like two good O linemen on the Seahawks. One is old, Dwayne Brown, and the other guy, I'm trying to remember his name. He's a rookie from LSU who came out of nowhere and he played the best, and he was like a nobody.
It's dope. I can't remember his name either, but I mean, I'm sure there's probably some Seahawks fans watching this because there's Seahawks fans everywhere. They'll probably put it down in the comments. So let's go to their pick in the third round, 27th overall. They drafted Chris Fournier. I gave this pick an A. You gave it a B. So let's talk a little bit about Fournier.
He's little. He's like 275. That is light. He's got to put on like 30 pounds. It's like 6'4", 275. Man's got to put on 30 pounds at least if he wants to play in the CFL. And I gave it a B. You know, decent pick because it's a potential pick, but it's not a compete pick. He's a camp body right now. He's got to put on some weight if he wants to be a compete guy. No, he kind of came out of nowhere, but I was more impressed with him than Dirks. And Dirks played at a higher level in the NCAA than Fournier did.
That's fair. I believe he's transferring to a Div 1 school this year, but he's a guy that's a multi-year starter in the NCAA. He's played both center and tackle, so you've got a little bit of versatility there. And with them losing Trey Rutherford, and I believe they lost Tyler Johnston, who was a Canadian tackle out of Oregon.
And, and then they both retired. Two guys retired, and then so did Spencer Wilson, who started off and on that year. He retired too. They had three retirees.
Yeah, three like really good retirees. So they, of course, they drafted. I think Montreal probably had the best like need draft out of all of the teams because three of their picks are offensive line. One's a kicker because they don't have a kicker, and then one of them is a player from the former GM's school where he used to coach at U of M. So yeah, again, I like this pick. I give it an A just because it fits the need really well, and he's got another year in the NCAA to learn and develop. So good pick. And the next pick in the fourth round, they picked Syracuse offensive lineman Patrick Davis. I gave this pick a B, and you gave it a C. So let's break this down a little bit.
He's never started a single game in the NCAA, and he basically just rode the bench and was like a rotational guy. If a guy got hurt or something and had to play like 3 snaps, so yeah, he's not good.
I know
That's my
people. That's fair. I know people like his size and his versatility. I think he's played again, kind of a bit all over. So, and people like his size. So again, with a later round pick, it's probably not the worst thing in the world to take a guy like that. So overall, I gave it a B. And then pick Ottawa should have made if they were going to draft a kicker slash punter. Montreal took Laval kicker David Cote at 45th overall. We both gave this pick a B. What do you think about him?
a little bit of a reach, but he was the best player for kicking on the board.
Yeah, for sure. I think last year's draft there was a ton of good kickers. Like one that comes to mind is Mark Leggio. There was a couple other ones, but I can't remember their names right now. But yeah, overall I like this pick because Montreal lost Boris Beatty, who is like they're all in one guy. I think he's in Toronto now, so I mean, good pickup for them to go grab a guy like this, and I'm sure they could find a guy off the street who can punt it. Like Van Gilswick, who is one of the better U Sport kickers, is still being a bit of a journeyman, so he's a guy that I can see going to Montreal too.
Could be, or maybe he knows how to punt a little. Who knows? But If you want to stick in the CFL, you got to be able to do both.
Oh, for sure. If you're Canadian, definitely. Like, there's a couple Americans that do like one or the other, but generally, yeah, you got to do all three jobs. You know.
Mhm, for sure. Agree. Versatility will get you far in the CFL.
Yep. And then let's go with their last pick in the sixth round, 46th overall. They took Ethan McConzo out of the U of M, who we mentioned. Their GM Danny Machocha taught, or not taught, he coached at U of M. So but it makes sense that Montreal took two U of M guys.
Yeah, they want the Carabong guys. They love them. You know, Montreal produces some pretty good prospects, and I will say his teammate was a reach in the second or third round. I don't recall. Appropriate pick at this stage. Appropriate pick. If it wasn't this late, I'd say it was a reach. But he's a quality player, a camp body for a little bit until he develops. But not a complete reach. You're at the point where you're kind of just going for best player available or who fits. And I guess if you have an in with the coach and the coach believes in you, good pick. Because, the coach hasn't been there long. He doesn't want to make a decision that's going to jeopardize his job. So he's going to pick a guy that he knows is going to come in and compete.
No doubt. So our next team is the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and we both have the same grade. Um, but we're gonna, I think, go to war over this first pick here. I think I mentioned, but we both gave them B plus. First overall pick, Jake Burt. I gave this pick a B. You gave it an A plus. So I think I've changed my opinion a little bit since this grade. But what do you think of this one, James?
Okay, I gave it an A plus because I thought it was appropriate. And I'm thinking to myself, so they got Nikola Kalinick from York,
Yep.
big strong guy, started immediately, second round pick. Who I think is probably going to be better than Jake Burt. The thing with Jake Burt is, oh, this guy can play receiver too. He can shred, get down a little bit. Or I'm thinking two tight end sets, pound the ball because Nikola can block, catch. Nikola plays receiver, fullback, tight end, well, an H back essentially, and so can Jake Burt. You get the two tight end set going and just pound the ball where it's good on goal line. But the thing is, either of them can play receiver, but preferably Jake Burt. Jake Burt can fill in a lot of holes. He's a versatile guy. But the thing is, what Nicola's so good uh, is he's a teamer. He's one of the best special teamers in the CFL U sports. And who knows, Jake Burt, we'll see. But I actually like this pick just because, I knew Jake Burt would be a first round pick, but I didn't think guys thought of him that highly. But I just gave an A plus because I felt like there's a lot of ways this pick could have gone, but at least they got a guy who can come in immediately and contribute.
Yeah, I agree. Like at first, I hated this pick because I thought of need, and then I dug more into his past and his numbers, and it's like, okay, this guy can fill their need because he runs a 4.8 40 time. At his size, that's excellent. Um, a big physical guy like that with a fast 40, you put him at that field wide receiver spot. I, I like it, and so I was like, when I first heard it, was like, oh, a tight end. It's like, oh, great. We never use those. That makes no sense. But you're right. He could definitely play some receiver. So I might bump my grade up on him just for that reason alone. Just he's a bit more versatile than I thought. And then let's go to their second pick in the first round, ninth overall. I love this pick. I just think it was slightly a little bit too high, but still like it. Ninth overall, they draft linebacker Nick Cross out of UBC.
Some people thought he was the best linebacker in the draft, but I kind of fell in love with Ben Hladick over the combine. But I still think Nick Cross was realistically the best linebacker in this draft, besides Lacombo. But Lacombo's a versatile guy. The thing is with Nick Cross, he might play Sam or safety in the CFL.
Yeah.
I thought this was a good pick because even though he has an injury history, He's a compete guy, realistically, not a body, a compete guy. When I say body, I mean guys that are just going to be like developmental guys, and then there's compete guys who are going to push the guys ahead of them, push the guys behind them to make them better. Because they're young guys that could come in and easily steal a spot. That's what I think of Nick Cross, and I think he's an animal.
Oh, for sure. I really like him because, again, I'm from Saskatchewan, so this was a guy even in high school who was, people knew who he was. Like, you knew who Nick Cross was if you were even remotely around football in Saskatchewan. Uh, so he's got that it factor. And watching his tape, I don't think he's lost a step on tape. He looks really good. As you mentioned, probably a Sam or a safety. I like him more at Sam just because I think he's a really good run stopper and he's just got a nose for the ball. And I just think that's a bit more beneficial at Sam. So, again, I love it. But, again, I feel like it was more of a second round. That's the only reason it's a B plus. Otherwise, this pick is an A. Like, yeah, great dude. Can't wait to see him in the CFL. And
Agree.
then let's go on to round two. Uh, Another one of your boys got picked here. Well, not York, but yeah. Dean Leonard out of Mississippi, 18th overall. So why don't you hype him up a little bit? You gave us an A
Ironic,
plus.
ironically, me, Logan Bandy, him, and Peter all played on the same team. Our community team, the Mavericks. Shout out the Mavericks. Mavericks. Anyway, so Dean, I think he's lightning in a bottle because who knows, he might not go to the NFL because he was a late season starter, but when he did, he turned up against South Carolina. He got a crazy fumble recovery that he didn't get a touchdown, but brought it back 60 yards. And I think he's special. People don't realize how special he is because there's a strong likelihood that he goes to the CFL first, then the NFL, just because he didn't get enough exposure at Ole Miss. He has one more year. He's going to start, but I think he's an A plus because I think he's a home run hit in the this is second or third round.
Second
Second, yeah,
round. Yep.
second home run pick. I think he's a home run. I think he's one of the best picks in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I love the value here in the second round. He's a guy that, as you mentioned, late starter because he was a guy that I kind of looked into occasionally. Like, I knew he transferred down to Ole Miss along with another Canadian who, unfortunately, I didn't get to check on as much. But I was like, okay, how's Dean Leonard doing? And then early in the season, he wasn't really doing much. It's like, okay, whatever. And then I come back and he's got these really nice numbers later in the year. And as you mentioned, that's because he was starting later. Guy had great numbers at Calgary. Got the chance to start later in the year and made the most of it. So it depends how he does. Like if he has a full really good year next year, he probably does have a shot at being like a late NFL draft pick or a priority UDFA.
Yeah,
So yeah, but if for some reason he doesn't get that opportunity, man, Hamilton got a really good player here, and I love that pick.
Lane Kiffin said Dean Leonard reminds him of an NFL quarterback.
That's definitely high praise there. I like that.
And his dad was our defensive coordinator. Anyway, like Dean's when I played.
That's sick, man. You got connections to all these guys. That's just crazy, man.
Dad played in the CFL too. I remember I was playing guard at the time on this team. And they're like, "Hey, we might need you to play nose this game. Go practice with defense for the week." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Man, you're the slowest human being I've ever met." That's what he told me. Anyway,
I hope you improve that for when your draft year comes.
no, I'm a lot faster. This is when I was just big and played football and not like an athlete. Now I'm an athlete and big in play.
Oh yeah, that's like sort of Logan Bandy's story. I think you were the one who sent like his like hype video or whatever right after the draft. Talked about how he just joined football because he was too big for hockey. So I thought that was a cool story.
Yeah, he was when I played with Logan, he was only like 245, not even, and now he's like 300.
Yeah. And then let's go to their third round pick here. Another great value pick by Hamilton here. They had a really nice draft. Uh They picked Muhammad Diallo, defensive tackle out of Central Michigan. Um, we both gave this pick an A, so why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Ted Laurent's not getting any younger. They need a guy who's big for the interior. But the issue is with this guy, people are concerned is that he transferred like school like 4 times in the NCAA. He went like
Yeah,
two JUCOs, Texas A&M, then Eastern Michigan. And it's like, I don't think he's a compete guy day one, but I do think he's developmental because he didn't have much production at Eastern Mich. But, good pick, filled the need. I will say this, their first 4 picks were unreal, but I felt like their draft kind of went off the rails after that.
yeah.
I think they could have easily been number one if they didn't screw up the last 3 picks.
I don't know. Saskatchewan had one hell of a draft, but I mean, we'll get to that. Yeah, but they definitely had probably the second best first half of the draft. I'll say that much for sure. You're right. Ted Laurent's getting long in the tooth. So drafting a guy who could potentially be his replacement. I like that, and you're right. It does kind of throw up a little bit of red flags that he's kind of transferring all over the place. That is kind of weird to me. Um, let's go to our next pick. Where is that? Round 4. Uh, my grade for this. I'm just gonna spoiler alert. These next 3 picks for me are non-applicable because I know nothing about these guys. Fourth round, they took Jarrett Richards out of St. Mary's. So, what do you know about him, James?
Good player from Quebec, so that's trusting. Because I think players from Quebec are very good. But the issue is he played at St. Mary's, and there's a thing with U Sports and anyone, everyone knows this, but out east is very bad football. Like AUS is like it's like I can't describe it, but if you look every year in the playoffs, they get absolutely smacked. It's like the Pac-12 of the Power Five, where they're like just like horrendous. They're like one of these like top divisions, but they suck. That's what
Oh
they're
yeah.
like. So I don't really trust guys from out east unless you're
So
Hena Wamba.
so you've compared U Sports to like second tier Div 1 US. What would you say the like maritime group of U Sports is relative to them?
I don't know. I guess Div two. I feel like they'd. Okay. This is just me. I feel like they could get smacked on any day by a Div two team. But I'm top. Like I'm saying, like UFC. I feel like could beat down teams in like the FCS. Like the only teams that would give them fits is like James Madison. But besides that, like a team like like Barry Sanders' team, they're like just like slightly under 500 or like
Yeah.
500 like Jackson State. Oh my god, UFC would throttle these people. But like it's hard to compare FCS because no one watches FCS. I barely do, like sparingly, but I just compared in Power 5 context.
I just know that all I know about them is North Dakota. One of the North Dakota schools has an amazing stadium, the Fargo Dome. It's like
Yeah,
a
North Dakota.
28,000 seat dome. It's like an awesome stadium.
They suck this year though. Since Trey Lance left, they're
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, they're not going to be good without Lance, but they have a really nice stadium. So yeah,
My friend played golf there that I went to college with. He was on a golf scholarship there.
I did not know they offer scholarships for golf.
In
Wow.
the States? Yeah, he went there and he said he used to go to football games all the time.
Yeah, like that stadium is like someone in the CFL should take notes because that's a stadium that probably
Carson,
should have been built in the prairies just with our weather here.
yeah, like my buddy played golf there when Wentz was the starting Q.
Oh, okay. Um, okay, let's get to our next pick here. This is a Laval guy, so that's always a good sign. Again, my grade is non applicable because I don't know enough. James gave this a C.
Yeah,
Felix Garand Gauthier, I believe is how you say that.
Yeah, he should have been. Honestly, this is an F now that I think about it. Now you have three eight, like fullback H back type guys on your roster when you've one who I think was the best fullback in the league last year, Nicola, not like objectively speaking, and then you get Jake Burt. Like, why would you waste a pick on a guy? This was an F. I put a C. This is an F now that I think about it. This guy's just what a special teams body. What is he going to do for you? Nothing.
That
He's not going
sucks, man. 'Cause he's gonna get buried on that roster. Oh man, you're right. Think about that. Oh man, I wouldn't want to compete with Jake Burt and Politich, that's for sure. And then their last pick, we were just talking about how Western produces good pros. Miles
Oh no, I was
Manalo.
like, Western sucks at producing pros.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
for how good a team are, they don't put out good pro. Like they have one of the lowest pro rates for a top team. Like the lowest amount of prospects that go. It's because they do a bad job at getting them training for their combine and stuff. They just don't do a good job. But I think they have a tremendous coach, but that's just how it is. And I just felt like he only had realistically one good starting year, but I felt like, he had some depth to the position, and he's probably a team or end of roster type of guy.
that's fair. Hopefully Dwayne Ford isn't listening to this because I know he's a big Western guy, but definitely fair. And then let's hit our next team here. That's the Bombers. Oh man, I like their draft too. I thought they had a really nice draft overall. So they with their first pick, third overall, they took uh what was it? Just offensive lineman because I guess he plays everywhere. Liam Dobson out of Maine, who we both gave this pick an A. So why don't you talk a little bit about Dobson?
Not a reach, good pick. But the thing was, they have good Canadian guards. CFL, he's 340 plus pounds.
Yeah, he's a big boy. I know there was talk of him as he's played a bit of tackle, he's played center. So the Bombers they kind of do have a slight need at center. So I like that if he goes and fills in for their center spot. There's a video of him at his weight dunking a basketball, which is pretty sick. Like this dude's a good athlete, you know?
Athletic big man. That's what I'm saying. I like this kid.
Yeah.
I say kid, he's like older than me, but yeah,
Yeah, like he's big but he's athletic too, which is nice.
that's the number one thing you want. A big, strong, athletic guy at like 340. That's super impressive.
No doubt. And then their second round pick, I know nothing about this guy, so again, non applicable for me. For round two, 16th overall, they took Reedha Karmandi, I believe is how to say that. Again, NA, James, you gave an F, so I want to hear your opinion here.
Total reach. You got like a seventh round undrafted guy in the second round who's like not even a camp body. Why? Why, Bond? Not Logan Bandy, a Canadian tackle, okay?
Man, I cannot wait till we get to that bandy pick because I want to hear you rant about that. That's gonna be amazing. Just remember, keep it PG. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah. Montreal again. I don't know much about this guy. But they produce good pros, and keep in mind these ratings are not indictments on players. Like this is just more or less how teams drafted is how we're grading this. So if like we think it picks like you could have gotten that guy later on, you know, that's what the grade reflects, not like, oh, this guy's absolute trash, he's a bum. You know, like that's not what this pick
It's just
not
I
what
just
our
felt
grades are meant to be. You know?
yeah, I just felt like why would you pick a guy like that at this high in the draft? It's no disrespect on their skill.
Yeah. And then their third round pick, I like this pick a lot. They took Patrice Renee, a DB out of North Carolina who is transferring to Rutgers next year.
I only gave this a B because I think he's an NFL guy. I think he is. Because when he did start at North Carolina, he played very good. So that's why I gave it a B. Just because I think he's an NFL guy.
That's fair. I know I think it was last draft. he had a lot of NFL buzz. I believe he was going to be a late round pick in that draft, but basically, I believe he ended his season with an ACL or yeah, ACL injury. And then when he came back, he was kind of replaced by a younger guy. So,
Freshman.
yep, that's why he's transferring out. And so, hopefully, he goes to Rutgers and plays extremely well and gets to the NFL. But if for whatever reason, maybe he gets injured again, or maybe he doesn't get to the looks that he did. I feel like that could be a really sweet grab for the Bombers. Actually,
Agree.
yeah, because they
I think it's
lost a couple
a thing.
DBs too. So
Next, he's one of these guys like Dean Leonard and Alonzo. You somehow make it to the CFL, you're an instant top player, in my opinion.
no doubt. Um, so with their fourth round pick, they took Robbie Lowe's out of the University of Regina. We both gave this a B. I like it. Dude can immediately play on teams and does have a chance to actually get some work in the CFL. So good pick.
Mhm. Good appropriate pick. That's all. That's why it's a B. A good pick. That's appropriate. Not a reach. Not a bad player. Good pick. Right spot. But it's not like their next pick is an A because I truly believe they got a guy who is not the 39th overall pick.
Oh, no doubt. I think we both can agree on that. In the fifth round, 39th overall, they pick back to back University of Regina Rams. This one, Kyle Borsa. Oh, man, I like this pick. I really like this pick, but I'll let you go first here.
He loves steroids like Trevor Harris. So,
Oh,
perfect fit.
you took my joke. I love it.
Oh, really? No, no, but he does have been busted for roids. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. He made the
It's
same
very
excuse as Harris, too, by the way. Like, he said the same thing. He went and took a supplement that apparently he didn't know was tainted or something like that. It's the
well,
same
that is
excuse.
super common. That's super, super common. Like a lot of guys aren't even on steroids, and that happens. But if you look at this guy's physiques, you could tell this guy looks way better. This guy looks like a Greek god, and Trevor Harris like an okay athlete. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Trevor's is more believable than Kyle's. Kyle does not look. He looks like he did steroids. But anyway, hey, I'm not just that helps his strength. Just because you're on steroids does not make you a good player. There's guys who are on steroids right now who probably suck. Okay,
Yeah.
and I hate people saying this or like everyone in football's on steroids. No, I've seen guys who've never done steroids in their life bench press 225 30 plus times, and
That's
they do not
insane.
and they don't even take supplements, like drink protein or anything. Like
Yeah.
it's just some people are just built different.
Yeah, like Borsa, when he got suspended, he said he took a lot of time off and just hit the gym really hard with Robbie Lowe, ironically. So yeah, that's probably why he's in such great shape. He just had way more time to go and hit the gym because of his suspension, at least that's what I'm hoping. But yeah, I like this pick for the Bombers. You get depth and a potential replacement for Andrew Harris when he gets older. So good pick. And I remember your first thing you said about him was he's got arms like an American running back.
Oh, he makes like Chuba Hubbard look small.
Yeah, like dude's a big guy, so that's a nice pick. And he's fast. So definitely a guy who could have gone earlier, but I love the fit.
For sure.
And then let's go with their last pick of the draft, 48th overall. They took DB Shea Weeks out of the University of Manitoba. I gave this pick an A. You gave it a C, so let's hear this.
He actually finished at a school in the States in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played at Bemidji State University, a public university in Minnesota. I actually knew who he was when at um he played in Manitoba, but I felt like he may or may not have hurt his draft stock. But you know, uh, I'm trying to look. I'm just doing research. I don't think he ever played a game. No, he didn't play a game here. But yeah, I gave him an okay pick 'cause I felt like I think he's a little raw and a little like maybe an undrafted guy.
I like it because he is projected to go higher in some mocks, and he's from the U of M. But I definitely agree with you. Him going to that NCAA school, unlike a guy like Dean Leonard, this really hurt his stock. Like if I was him, I would have just sat out. You probably would have gone higher. So I like the pick, but I see where you're coming from there.
Division two school.
Huh?
It's a Division two school.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting then.
Yeah, it's troublesome.
Sure. And then let's go to the Edmonton football team now. I almost said Eskimos. So with their first overall pick, you have very different opinions than everyone else. Cole Nelson out of the University of Alberta. So I'm gonna let you defend him for a bit here.
6'6", ran a 40 under 5 seconds in the 4.9s, 315 pounds. I probably said 6'6" already. 225 press 26 times. Built like an NFL D tackle, bigger than an NFL D tackle, but I'm not going to say who. I got a source who said he might play O line, but I shouldn't have said that, but whatever. Um,
Hey man.
I when I was doing my Rise and Fall series, just something came up, y'all. You know, I'm going through it, COVID, whatnot. Didn't post it, but I had Cole Nelson as the combine winner for Rising Stars.
Yeah, man. Like you called this.
Like in our
Ev-
group chat, I did gas this guy up, and I
yes, you
didn't even
did.
think.
That is, yeah. You gassed this guy out before the draft. I can attest to that. With everyone that every like draft person said you could have got him later on, and I can't remember who. I think it was Marshall first, and like people were blowing up his phone saying like, "Oh, why didn't to take this guy so early? You could have had him later," and stuff like that. So that's the only reason I gave him a C plus was because he wasn't really on anybody's radar. So you probably could have had him later, but
He had severe injury history where he actually played 1 year at U of A, then sat 2 years out, then came back and started one more
yeah,
before yeah, big time injury concerns. But man, just his athleticism is crazy. That's why I had him. I have it as an A because I feel like I I'm so torn about the CFL draft. I always like poop on people and then be like, "Oh, why didn't you get this guy?" But drafting isn't a perfect science, and the CFL. I always say this: it's always draft. They always draft guys on potential, not what they are currently. And Cole Nelson has he could play literally. They could probably convert him to an O lineman. It'd probably work out. I'm trying to remember the guy they did that to on Calgary. He played at Concordia, but he played D line and O line for the Stamps, and he played at Concordia. And this could be maybe be a guy like Nelson, because he's huge.
that's crazy. I know. I have a friend that plays offensive line at Concordia, so shout out there to Dawson Mucha there. Hopefully he gets drafted too. Like I think you and him might be in the same class. Hopefully one of you gets drafted, man.
Yeah, let's hope that I do eventually.
All right, and then second round pick. The Eskimo or frick, I said it. Damn it. All right. The Edmonton football team. Sorry, drafted linebacker Grant McDonald out of the University of Calgary. We both gave this an A, so let's hear what you got to say here.
Played tight end at Maine before he transferred. But come on, guys, please don't get mad. He got busted for steroids too.
Oh no. Jesus, man.
It's
Un-
really
if he had the same excuses like Andrew Harris and Kyle Borson, man, that's unreal. But I don't know what specifically his excuse was. I know he was one of the top rookies at Maine and transferred to Calgary to play with his brothers, actually. I believe he's got one brother that plays receiver, and then another is quarterback. So that's kind of cool. He got to go and play with his brothers and then jump to the CFL, so that's all right. Yeah, you said busted for PEDs, but yeah, I think he could be a decent player at the next level anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think his combine was really good. He was one of the players that I really exceeded expectations. People knew he was good, but I felt like they were really exceeded post combine. So that's why I gave him an A, and I think he's a compete guy right away.
For sure. And then let's jump into round three. 23rd overall. They took Deontay Glover out of Shepherd University. We both gave this pick a C, so let's hear your reasoning here.
Hmm. I felt like he was a little bit of a reach or a guy who didn't really produce, and he was at a low end Division One. Well, I don't even know American team, and I felt like you probably could have gotten a better player at this that was a Canadian receiver.
That's fair for sure.
I mean, Canadian running back. My bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. I kind of agree too. I think Borsa might have been slightly better, but this is a guy who he was originally at a D1 school, was a rotational guy there, and then transferred to a D2 school and put up really good numbers. So yeah, I feel that I don't really like the fit here, just because they have James Wilder Jr. there already. So why are you drafting, Canadian running back when that's not a position of need for you? I feel like Hamilton with one of their later picks would have been a much better fit, and if he would have went there, would have gotten a much higher grade for me. But just because of fit, and I think Borsa might have been a little bit better. That's why I'm giving the pick a C. And
Yeah,
then
I thought Borsa was significantly better.
for sure, his measurables are sure like dude had insane measurables with the 40 time, and just leaving a really nice bench too. And then let's go to their fourth round pick. Um, 32nd overall, they took former Canadian quarterback turned receiver out of Buffalo, Dominic Johnson. I give this pick an A. You give it a C. So let's hear kind of your reasoning for that.
Doesn't have a position. He played QB there. His brother Theodore plays at Penn State. This guy's like a tight end QB receiver. This guy doesn't have a real position. That's the issue, in my opinion. He doesn't have a real position.
That's true. This guy came in as a quarterback, was a walk on to the basketball team, so he's a multi sport athlete. You're kind of right in terms of things you mentioned, but I just like his athleticism. Like, dude's just a really great athlete, and I mean, the CFL draft in the later rounds. I mean, you can take a shot on a guy like this. I don't think it's the worst pick you could have made. So that's why I'm giving it an A, just because of raw athletic talent, and dude's got crazy size. He's 6'5", 225. So if he pans out, he's definitely a good pick. And beauty with Edmonton is they don't need to start him right away. They got Tavon Smith there, who's an elite Canadian receiver, so he can wait in the wings for a couple years if he needs to refine his skills at receiver.
Can sit and learn.
Exactly. And then let's jump to their fifth round pick here, 41st overall. They took Peter Cortis. I did not know much about this guy, so my grade's an NA. You gave this a B plus, so let's hear about him a little bit.
Oh, really good Canadian O lineman from SMU. I feel the exception to me pooping on out east is line to an exception. But this guy's been like a multi-year starter, and he's proven, and he's looked really good. That's what I think. I feel like anything but O line for out east is that's the least drop off is offensive line. So I thought it was a really good pick. Kind of a steal now that I think about it this late. Kind of a steal. He went to the national, and he did perform.
All right, that's good. Let's go to our next pick. Their last pick in the sixth round, 50th overall. Defensive back Keenan Clark. Again, I don't know enough about this guy. He's out of Cornell. I gave this pick obviously an NA. James, you gave it a B, so let's hear about him a little bit.
Well, he started at Cornell, Ivy Leagues, smart kid. No, I thought it was pretty good. I felt like that was kind of a guy who was relatively unknown, but did start Division 1 and made an impact. So I felt like it was a B, though it wasn't at like a big time school. He played at a school that doesn't even offer scholarships, so football's not taken as serious. But I felt, impact NCAA. Let's give him a B plus. His tape looks pretty good. He has to learn. He's pretty raw and probably would have played a lot better if he played U Sports and would have maybe gone higher. But I felt like it was a good draft. That's why I think Edmonton had like a top 3 draft. They drafted really well. They drafted pretty consistently.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely good to hear that he was a decent contributor at D1. I'm not sure if he's a DB though, or is he a safety?
It's tough to tell. It's because linebackers usually convert to safeties. I don't. It's hard.
Yeah, so we'll see what he does in the future. And our next team is the BC Lions, who I gave them an A minus. You gave them an A. So let's get into their picks. First round, fourth overall, they took defensive end Daniel Joseph. I gave this a B plus. You gave it an A plus. So let's hear you talk
They
about Daniel Joseph a little bit.
He ain't going to the NFL, even though he transferred from Penn State, where he sucked, to NC State, where he played lights out. He's not going to go to the NFL. I can tell you that. Production, he one good year, and he had a large amount of sacks, but he didn't play like an NFL guy. He kind of was a guy who they needed. He played out of necessity, and that's why yeah, his sacks are attributed to basically it's like a vacuum. He's filling a position that they need, and he's the product of the system getting those sacks. And he's a good player, but he's not an NFL player. Come here, ball out. BC needs pass rushers big time. Well, they need everything big time. I think they're
Hmm.
an awful team, but
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
felt I feel like they had the second best draft where they addressed a lot of needs and only had one pick that was okay.
Yeah, for me, I didn't love the fit. Just because I don't think BC has a lot of interior or not even interior Canadian defensive ends for backups, but they later addressed this in the draft, so
Oh, you
I
can
mean it's
play everything.
definitely not the worst fit. So
He can play three tech, the end. He's super versatile.
that's awesome to hear. And then let's jump to the second round where they took Alaric Jackson out of Iowa. A surprise, like dude fell off a cliff in the NFL draft. He was projected at the start of the year to be like a third round pick, and then later on he was like in the 3 to 5 range, and then he just went undrafted, which is wow.
Uh,
So I gave this pick a C plus. You gave it an A. So why don't you talk a little bit about this?
an absolute horrendous pro day, horrendous senior bowl. Looked out of shape for a guy who's a vegan. And in the NFL, he translates to a guard, but he started many years at Iowa Big Ten. He started 4 years. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah,
Tristan Wirth went there, O-line factory, but just something about him. His game doesn't translate to the pros very well because he's a pretty tall cat, but he's short arms. But I swear, if he comes to the CFL, he will be the best offensive lineman in the CFL. Where he like clamped Chase Young. He's played against Nick Bosa, Chase Young. He's played against every D end in the Big Ten you can think of and other conferences. He's played the who's who before and has played consistently well.
yeah, like he's held his own against Bosa and Young, respectively. As you mentioned, 4 year starter at Iowa, which is O line U in American football, and
It's one of them.
yeah,
Notre Dame is O-line you, but for the sake of the argument, yes.
yeah, it's one of them. Okay, and then yeah, what else was I gonna say? But yeah, like he was all Big Ten team as well. I believe he was like either first or second team all Big Ten. So like he's got accolades. He's like a 4-year starter. So it's just with him, there's a, as you mentioned, bad pro day, bad Senior Bowl. There's some work ethic concerns with him, by some NFL people. So I think that's probably what hurt him the most. And if this draft has taught me anything, it's that hey, the Senior Bowl really puts a lot of stock in prospects with Josh Palmer and Alaric Jackson kind of being
Justin
polar opposites, you know?
like Justin Herbert, man, after I saw and like Chase Claypool, I'm just saying in general, a lot of guys make their name in the Senior Bowl who are like the guy from Div 3, that O lineman, Quentin or something Miners. Oh
Yeah.
my god, that guy came out of nowhere. That's what I mean. And Ali Marpet, a Div 3 guy taken in the second round, lowest of all time, like highest picked in from Division 3, was seen at Senior Bowl. That's what I'm saying. Senior Bowl performances matter for a lot of guys.
No doubt. So yeah, I see that's what hurt Alaric Jackson. I mean, again, just because of his pedigree, I think he sticks around for a while in the NFL, but if he ever does get here, he's going to be a really good player for sure. And then let's go to their next pick, which is an absolute steal. Third round, 22nd overall, they took UBC linebacker Ben Halatic. A++s all around. So let's hear what you have to say about him.
Versatile, 6'4", like 230. Oh my god, and this guy can cover. He's probably going to play well or defensive end. We'll see. But he's tall, he's strong. He had second amount of reps on the bench press, 4'6", 40. Great lateral speed, probably the best overall athlete in this draft. And I'd say, besides Colt, out of guys who are established names, he had the best pro day. Besides Cole Nelson, he was a nobody who had an unreal pro day. But if we're just looking at this in like a vacuum of who had the best pound for pound pro day, Ben Halatic did it. And he's also in 2018 was the U Sports Defensive Player of the Year. So he's a real deal kind of player who's like an instant compete guy, even though they got the guy from Eastern Carolina last year.
Yeah.
Still a good pick. I think BC hit a home run with this pick.
Yeah, BC's been trying to go Canadian at linebacker for a long time, and this pick helps them do that for sure. As you mentioned, given his size, he's probably a play right away guy because you don't have to wait for him to gain weight. He's already got it, and because of his coverage skills, I think he's probably more of a will linebacker. So they could potentially start two linebackers because Jordan Williams is projected to be a middle linebacker.
Yeah, for sure. Or he can probably fly around a little bit.
Oh, no doubt, yeah, but that's awesome because you hear about some guys in U Sports, oh, they lack the size or whatever. It's like, no,
He's
this
a
guy's got size and weight, you know?
size, weight, speed. He has it all.
Yep. And then let's go to round 5, 40th overall. I liked this pick because of fit, and combined with the Daniel Joseph pick, this one makes a lot more sense. And consider the school. Alfred Green out of Wilfrid Laurier. So I gave this a B plus. You gave it a C minus, man. Why are you so hard on the guy?
Man, I've played against him. I've seen him. He like posted some photos of our quarterback with like a sniper scope over him saying it's hunting season. And
Oh,
quarterback actually got hurt. Like he actually really had a horrible ankle injury because
oh,
of cheap shots. But I just want to say, this dude, he's small. He is a tiny man, and he's not going to play D end. He's not going to play D end, and I don't think he's a CFL player. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Well, I think he's a body, but I don't think he's a D end, and I just think he's not. He wasn't even. He's the fourth best D lineman on Laurier's D line. Ironically, one of them is in the CFL. One never got a shot and graduated, but I just don't think. Well, he did. He fumbled the bag, but I just mean Alfred Green's not it.
interesting. Yeah, again, I like this pick as maybe like a backup guy for Daniel Joseph because they don't have any backups for Daniel Joseph. That's why I gave it a B plus, just because combined with that pick, I think it justifies kind of the earlier pick.
Yeah,
That's
they
why I
kind of
like it.
D-line a little bit.
But there was a guy that the Riders drafted who I think is much better, who's definitely size wise is better, but we'll talk about him later. Their last pick, I really like. 51st overall in the 6th round, they took Tyler Packer. I gave this an A, and he gave it a B plus. So why don't you talk a little bit about Packer?
I wish I gave it an A now. I change. It's an A. It's kind of a steal for sure. But I was just thinking to myself, just like he's the height of a tackle. He's very tall. Or he's only a little bit taller than me, and I play interior. But what I mean is like he's very tall for the interior. Like 6'6.5" is huge for interior, and he's kind of too slow to play tackle right now. He'd have to shed some pounds, but he's also a project type of guy. But I think he could pan out to be really good just based on his size measurables and the school he came from. So
Yeah, for sure.
I switch it from a B plus to an A.
Yeah, the school he came from produced a lot of very quality offensive linemen in Calgary, and BC definitely needs some help there. And I know Packer was one of the good players out there, so I mean, it's definitely sweet to see him getting drafted. He went later than I thought he would, but I mean,
So
great
did I.
pickup for BC, And then
Sure.
let's get to the last team on our list, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Unanimous A plus across the board. And full disclosure, I am a Rider fan, but I usually am harder on the Riders than the other guys. So again,
I'm
take that
the
into
Riders.
account with my grades. You know.
I can't stand the Riders. People don't know this. This is my least favorite team, and see, them and Hamilton I can't stand. But I will say the Riders hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, well, not Riders, but like, with your assessment of kind of Hamilton fans there a little bit, just because I've had some very toxic interactions with a handful of Tiger Cats fans. I'm not going to let that, be my reflection of the whole fan base, but they're a team that I really like. They're probably my number 2 team, and now it's like Montreal's on the rise, and they're a bit on the fall just because I think Montreal's a bit more fun to watch.
Agree. I remember I saw Moamba like 2019 when he absolutely just hammers the running back on the goal line of Hamilton, and he coughs up the ball, and they end up winning that game. I remember that. I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is Montreal. If they can continue to do this, is going to be scary, and they just turn around.
Yeah. Like VA as a quarterback, he is so fun to watch, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, he's like he's like I was gonna say the closest thing to John, but like Johnny Manziel in college, like one of the
Yeah,
guys that can throw too.
for sure. And then let's get back on track here with Saskatchewan. Second overall, I love this pick. They took Nelson Lacombo out of the U of S. We both gave this an A, so why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Compete guy immediately. A little small for a linebacker, so he will play in the secondary, but he's a compete guy. You know, he went to U of S, even though he's not from Saskatchewan, he's from BC. Still kind of a hometown guy. He gets to stay where he played college, where he's familiar, where he's comfortable. And also he's an immediate compete guy. You know, I'm shocked he didn't get an NFL look. I'm shocked.
Yeah,
And
agreed. Like, yeah, I think if there would have been a U Sports season, he probably would have, just because his tape is insane. And
it
I
went
know Paul Waldo, coach the U of S, gave him extremely high praise. So yeah. And do you have anything else to say there, James? I thought I cut you off there, but I wasn't sure.
Oh no, I was just saying that, you know, he won the defensive player of the year. He's a scary player.
No doubt. And next pick, another A plus plus, 17th overall. They took Terrell Jana somehow, wide receiver out of Virginia.
They
So,
got the first overall pick at number
yep.
pretty much.
Yeah, they got the consensus number 1 pick in the 2nd round. I was I was laughing this entire draft, and You'll see why later on here, but oh my god, the fact that we were able to get Jana in the second round, I love this. And he's a guy who could play like right away. He had 100 targets, not this last season, but the season before at Virginia, and 88 catches. The quarterback play, the year from that year to this year was a horrendous downgrade, so his numbers took a dip as a result. But this is a guy that can plug and play, and I know some scouts, not necessarily me, but somebody compared him to Markway McDaniel, and I don't know, James, you're a Calgary guy. You know more about that than I would, but
Could see it. I could definitely see it. And I usually hate CFL pro comps because guys are always a lot different. But I like that one. I think that one's appropriate.
for me, watching his tape, uh, the conclusions I drew from it was like he's not a burner, but like dude's got hands and can separate. So I mean, apparently they're looking at him as a slot receiver. I definitely don't hate that. You were saying?
He's a technician.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then again, you can tell I'm not a huge fan of tight ends, but third round, they drafted Bruno LaBelle out of Cincinnati. I gave this pick a B. You gave it an A. So let's hear your thoughts on this.
Because I don't think he sticks in the NFL, but I think he's going to play like an H back, like a fullback tight end hybrid, which Saskatchewan does not have, and that means this guy's going to come across the line and hammer guys in the game and in the play action game, and I think he brings a new versatility to Saskatchewan's offense and can open up the types of plays they call.
For sure, just feel like giving Jason Moss a tool like this is really nice. And we did have Patrick Laval for a little bit, but did they play a similar role, or what would you describe Patrick Laval as relative to the tight ends here?
More of a fullback. Bruno is like, even though fullback's a dying position, it is a dead position in the NFL dying, but Bruno's like that hybrid. He's an H back, and the H back is still around where it's like a fullback tight end hybrid.
Oh, okay. And then one thing I saw is like he's a really good blocking player. Like his receiving numbers aren't eye popping, but the dude can block with the best of them. So it's definitely nice to get some extra pass protection there, and as you mentioned, good versatility for the riders.
Tell you what, the RPO is a deadly game, and that's what a tight end's good for that.
That's good. And then let's get to their next pick. This is a guy I didn't know a lot about, so I went and did my research on him, and I love this pick now. With their fourth round pick, 35th overall, they took Elaine. I'm gonna
Simon
struggle. I'm
Conda,
gonna butcher this last name
actually,
unless
that's
you
what
know it.
I know is a Simon Conda, and so he's a Guelph guy. Of records, best DN in the OUA. His teammate went to Ole Miss, who's a DN. That's only because he's 6 foot. Elaine's like 6'1", 6'2". I gave this a B plus, only because I felt like Elaine was needed for this team. I thought he was a really good player, but the only thing is he left their head coach is a racist and said racist stuff about
Yeah,
telling like players not to wear do-rags and stuff. Their head coach is not this guy, but Elaine's really good, and I think he's gonna have a nice career in the CFL. A little undersized, but extremely strong, quick, technically sound.
yeah. Apparently, this guy can play like interior and defensive end. Looking at his size, he's probably more of an end, but the
Yeah, no, he's
Riders do have an
great.
open spot there. So I mean, like with Charleston Hughes gone, maybe he slides in and is like a rotational guy. So
Yeah.
for the
Mhm.
ratio flexibility, I definitely like this pick. And then round 5. And then I remember calling this in the group chat unintentionally. I said if the Riders somehow get Nelson Lacombo, Terrell Jana, and this guy, like it's over. Like get the Vince Carter gif out there. Like it's over. Like Riders won. Uh,
Oh,
in the 5th round, 38th overall, they took offensive lineman Logan Bandy out of Calgary. I still don't know how they did it, but they did it, man.
neither do I. People like some people had him mocked as the second pick, and I was like, yeah, that's appropriate. I thought he was the best in youth sports, hands down. Multiple all Canadian, can play tackle, can play guard, good size, good speed, pretty good strength. He didn't hit 225 20 times, but he hit it 8, which is still good. And he's like 295. You might need to put 15 pounds. But I'm saying this guy's technically sound. When I played with this guy, he was like 240. He wasn't a big guy, and he was the best O lineman I'd ever seen. And this was just in high school, and he was underweight. Then when you watch his tape, they showed all of the guys who were playing UFC on UFC against UFC on the UFC O line like Peter. And if you just look at that left tackle spot, you see him making plays, making tremendous seal blocks, pancaking guys. He's on everyone's highlight, but he slipped. Even if they're
Yeah,
not highlights on the O line, he's somewhere in there making a play in the highlight, blocking someone, clamping him, and he dropped. I do not understand. I'm actually waving my hand listening. Like, how does he slip? How does he slip? Biggest steal of the draft.
yeah, I know. I remember. Shout out to the CF Perspective for doing like live coverage of the draft after TSN dropped their coverage. I remember asking them, it's like, "Hey, what's going on with Logan Bandy? Why is he slipping?" And then like Marshall Ferguson, who's the scout for CFL.ca, he had no idea. And I mean, like I had no idea. James obviously didn't know. No one knows why he slipped. So I was joking with James. It's like, dude must have pissed everybody off in the interview because there's no reason he should have been around in round 5. Like that's like the biggest mystery of the draft. But as a Rider fan, I am laughing. I'm not complaining. This dude is elite. And just because of the way the Riders ratio is made up, he's probably not going to be a tackle for them. He's probably going to slide into guard, but I mean, there's a spot open because they lost Dakota Shepley to the NFL and Darius Bladdock to Toronto. So Bandy could probably compete right away with Maitland Riley for that starting spot at right guard.
And I think he's better than Maitland Riley, to be fair, to be honest.
Like, wow, like what an amazing pick! I love it.
Yeah,
And then
everyone I know is shocked.
yeah, like same here, man. Everyone I know was shocked too. Everyone's like, "What? How is he still on the board? Why didn't my team pick Logan Bandy? How did the Riders get him in round 5?" And it's just like I asked that about a lot of these picks. Like Jana was the consensus number 1. We didn't even need a wide receiver, but he was so good we took him anyway. And I mean, now we can start 2 Canadian wide receivers if we want to. So not complaining there either. And then let's go with their last pick, 53rd overall. They picked Matt Watson, defensive back out of Mount Allison. I gave this pick a B. You gave it a C plus. So let's hear what you have to say about Matt Watson.
Mount Allison is a trash school and their players suck.
All right. Anything else to add?
No, I barely know I know of him, but I barely know. All I know is he started at Mount Allison and that he didn't do a whole lot.
Oof. I don't mind it with a late round pick. I trust the Riders scouting department, especially with the rest of the draft they put together. And I saw this guy mocked a little higher, so I like the value. Just given with the Riders ratio, with Cameron Judge being gone, there's a bunch of questions about where the next Canadian spot's going to be, like a 7th Canadian. Like, are the Herdman Reed twins? Are they going to fill in Judge's spot and start there? Are we going to start Ilibuka? Um, where's Nelson Lacombo going? Could he play Sam? Or like, do we start Terrell Jana? So I like the flexibility this gives us, and we signed Godfrey Onyeka, and we already have Ilibuka, so Matt Watson could just be depth there if we want to start a corner. And
Yeah, no, he's a camp buddy.
yeah, like Ilibuka is a guy that he's been waiting
Good
too
start.
long to be starting, man. Like he's reminds me of Tavon Campbell a little bit in that way.
Yeah, you gotta wait your shot sometimes in the CFL, unfortunately, and I think Ely Buka is one of those guys.
Yeah, because when he's on the field, he's good. Like he was like shutting down. I remember Brian Burnham in one game where he got burned once, but he like shut him down the rest of the game. And as a Canadian field defensive back covering Brian Burnham, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league, that's something. So I hope that he's the guy that gets that starting Canadian spot, or if we decide to start more Canadians, cool beans. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I thought this was hands down the best draft class just because of the amount of the quality of the steals they got was unreal.
I agree. Best draft in a long time by any team.
No doubt. And then that's going to wrap up our grades breakdown. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search up True North CFL Podcast and you will find us. You can also listen to the show on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and now Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave us a review, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And as your host, Jimmy Leach, this is the True North CFL Podcast signing off.